Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I've had several people tell me, hey Jason, some stuff just went down with Jason Genova and Blackstone Labs. What do you think about it? So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. I had to do a little bit of digging. Honestly, I'm not even sure what I want to say about this topic because the whole thing is just so stupid anyway, because we're dealing with Blackstone Labs, a company pretty much the stuff I hate most about the fitness world and the supplement world. Companies like this exemplify it. Other than maybe they're slightly more honest than the other companies in a certain way, but they sell nothing but products that really only exist and are more dangerous than a lot of the prohibited things that are out there. They only exist because a black market exists, and they supply an alternative that tries to slip through loopholes in the law. And they don't always successfully do so. But what happened is apparently Blackstone Labs, because either they're fans of Rich Piana or because they didn't want the blowback, because Jason Genova made statements saying that he was glad Rich Piana died. And I can see how people would say, hey, that's not cool to say that you're glad that someone died. It's probably not a good idea, guys. For any of you out there, probably not a good idea to say it. You can say, man, that sucks, you know, the guy died, or he did it to himself. But being glad that someone died who's a public figure, has a lot of fans, probably going to be some blowback. Probably not a good idea. Although Genova is probably the one person who had the most cause to feel that way because the guy physically assaulted him. But don't even get me started on that. That's a whole nother set of ridiculousness. And I'm just going to leave that one alone at this point. But understandable, Jason Genova being upset. He himself does have some handicaps. Being upset over Rich Piana, I get it. And I think people blew that out of proportion. But again, it doesn't make it right for him to have said it, and I can understand a company wanting to distance themselves from it. Makes total sense. Perfectly reasonable. Here's the thing, though. Here's what bothers me. Why in the world is Jason Genova a sponsored athlete from a company that produces potentially dangerous drugs? Because that's what companies like Blackstone Labs do. If they gave any of their products, a single one of their products, to Jason Genova, I think the members of the company responsible should probably be prosecuted for supplying dangerous substances to someone who has questionable mental faculties and reasoning skills. All right, someone who's mentally handicapped holds a different legal status in this country than other people do. They're treated in some ways like children in regards to that. And if the Blackstone Labs had been supplying free products to children, there would be legal consequences. There legally isn't much different here. Why haven't they been prosecuted? That's the real question. Let's look at what they make. They make research anabolics, pro-hormones, SARM, stuff like that. For people who don't understand what this is, steroids can be invented all the time. There's new steroids that get created, research, produced, everything else all the time, because it's a basic sort of molecule, and there are alterations. There are lots of different variations that can be made of these things, different delivery systems, everything else. Every individual drug that is illegal usually has to be named in laws. So people need to understand that. It takes time for laws to catch up. So if all of a sudden we come up and we make a nandrolone methylated with a methylated group on it, and it hasn't been created yet, even though there's multiple variations of nandrolone that are with injectable esters on them, we've created a totally new chemical substance. All right, and whatever we happen to name it, you know, nandrolone 5-methyl-A or whatever, based upon the chemical structure of it, it's a new drug. It's not illegal until it's made illegal. So what companies like this do, they jump on these various substances as they're created or that haven't been controlled yet because maybe they were researched. And this is how a lot of the pro-hormones and things got out there. These substances exist. Medical research is done or whatever. They're created by scientists oftentimes, and then they decide they don't have that good of a medical use. And in the case of many of them, because they're like, well, they are not any stronger than the stuff we already make for prescription, but it had a higher level of toxicity in the body. put a heavier strain on the liver, much heavier strain than other stuff, so we don't need this substance. We're not going to even make it a controlled substance. But the creation of it has already exists. All right, it's already out there, and it can be replicated by chemists who see how it was made. So what happens oftentimes, and this has happened quite a few times, substances that are more toxic like that, been found to be not as good on the reward to risk ratio, they didn't become prescription drugs. They didn't start getting produced. Therefore, there are no laws in place for them yet. So then these companies start producing them and selling them as over-the-counter products, sometimes for a few months, 6 months, whatever it takes before the law catches up and identifies and says, hey, this is an illegal substance, you can't sell this anymore. All right, that's what a lot of these companies do, where they take various research chemicals like this that are of questionable safety, that are pharmaceutical type drugs. These are drugs, guys. These aren't just herbal supplements. This isn't, fish oil. This isn't creatine. These are actual drugs. And that's a lot of what Blackstone Lab makes. Research chemicals that have not been fully tested in humans, drugs that haven't been fully tested and gone through clinical trials for the FDA or whatever, and because they're then selling it as a dietary substance and there are loopholes in the law for dietary supplements, they push these products out, and then eventually the laws change, and a lot of the substances that Blackstone Labs and other companies have made, the laws have changed on them since they started selling them, and they became more controlled substances. But in the meantime, they're cranking them out and selling them. The reality is a lot of these pro-hormones and everything else, when you really look at what they do, they're oftentimes more dangerous and more toxic than regular anabolic steroids that are already out there on the black market. So people are oftentimes buying quasi-legal or legal substances from these companies that are more dangerous to you, even in the short term, than all the black market drugs and pharmaceutical grade drugs that people either get prescriptions for or get kicked out on the black market. They're more dangerous oftentimes. And these companies make a living off of this. And the same thing, this same company, Blackstone Labs, you look at some of their marketing, they're almost promoting party type drugs, a party scene, everything else. Look at you guys remember the video I did of their one substance, and I said their commercial looked like Fear and Loathing at Spearmint Rhino? You guys remember that? Look at the sort of marketing this company produces. This is a bunch of stupid-ass meatheads who live a party and drug lifestyle, who are cranking out quasi-legal drugs and research chemicals, selling them as dietary supplements, and then promoting a whole partying and drug-type lifestyle, even with the sort of other side products that they make also. This is a questionably... Actually, the ethics of companies like this aren't even questionable. I think the ethics of companies like this are very, very clear. Again, companies that only exist because there's prohibition of other stuff, so they crank out alternative versions that haven't been fully cracked down upon legally of drugs that are already black market. Now, we could argue that the actual prohibition of some of these drugs actually creates a lot of the dangers, and I agree that it does. I am actually for legalization age 21 and up of anyone for normal pharmaceutical grade anabolics. That's how I feel. My libertarian stance. I'm a libertarian conservative. That's how I feel about it. I think they should be legalized. That black market and the way the nature of it exists and the loopholes the supplement industries have allows companies like Blackstone Labs to even exist. All right, and it's ridiculous. And so then they go and had Jason Genova as a sponsored athlete, and they're giving him whatever stuff. Well, they're giving them no products, and these are potentially dangerous substances that really people should need to be really weigh out the risk of using, and they are giving them to a person who isn't capable of making these sort of long-term decisions for himself. So I think it's hopefully a good thing that Jason isn't associated with this company, because this company is going to hurt him. So that's a good thing. And as far as anyone else saying, oh, they're glad they did it, well, yeah, you're probably glad for the wrong reasons. It's probably in Genova's best interest for this company to have distanced themselves from him. And as far as their reputation goes, I mean, they don't have a good reputation. They don't have a reputation. Look at what they do. Look what they do already. Furthermore, you know what, their reputation at stake as a bunch of partying meatheads who are all into drugs in the party scene and using tons of drugs anyways. That's kind of what their whole image is. That's what they prop up. Oh, that their image is going to be tarnished because Genova talked bad about someone who died as a result of their excessive, dangerous polydrug abuse. I want you to let that sink in. Let that sink in for a moment. Whether you liked Rich Piana or not, whether you loved the guy or you hated the guy, let's be realistic here. What killed him? He died as a result of polydrug abuse. That's what killed him. That's what killed him. Are we really going to debate this? Because a mentally handicapped person insulted someone who committed suicide through their drug abuse, arguably. Now, there's other theories out there. I'll touch on some of that later. But that's a whole nother topic. I do have my own suspicions about things going on with Piana's death. Another topic entirely. But the general consensus is that that's what killed him. They're worried about their reputation by sponsoring a mentally handicapped person who said he was glad that someone who died from excessive multiple drug abuse was dead, who had physically assaulted him and humiliated him publicly not that long ago. I don't even know what in the hell to think about that. What a clusterfuck. What a mess. And at a certain point, it's like, really, who cares even what Blackstone Labs does anymore? Who cares about the reputation of all this craziness? I mean, at a certain point, are we really concerned about the reputation of companies like Blackstone Lab? Are we concerned about the reputation of Rich Piana? Are we concerned about the reputation of Jason Genova? Look at all the things around all of these people. Their reputation? Are you kidding me?